Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Reset, Taliesin and Evitel's Wondrous Wisdomshow, in a week where, no, the set isn't finished yet, okay? Get off my case! But also in which we have an extra special episode for you, because yeah, we've got news to talk about, because of course we have, explaining the upcoming Prepatch events that have been testing, sort of, on the PTR, and their rewards, and other bits and bobs getting added to the now very, very close to release new expansion World of Warcraft Dragonflight. But also, the majority of this episode is going to be taken up by a special report talking about the absolutely spoiler-tastic lore dump extravaganza with the 5 secret in-game books that are now lootable in the revamped Uldaman Dungeon on beta that drop not 1, not 2, not 3 or 4, but 5 lore warheads into the North Sea of the Wowosphere. And quite frankly, what did you do, Steve? It's massive. It's obviously got red bots up the wazoo. It gives hints to new races and zones and enemies and past events and future events. And I can't wait to start talking about it, which I will just as soon as we've done our weekly beta and PTR news roundup. Because new in the beta data mining this week, new weapon drops, almost certainly for the Court of Stars and Halls of Valor dungeons, which of course will be part of the Mythic Plus rotation in Season 1 of Dragonflight. Now you might not remember, but Legion didn't have any weapon drops in any of its dungeons or raids because of the artifact weapon system. Because we blasted those artifact weapons into the big old Thundercat sword and they don't work anymore. So yeah, it would be kind of nice to have weapon drops in Court of Stars and Halls of Valor. The appearances themselves are all available elsewhere, so this isn't a transmog thing, it is just cold, hard stats. Ah yeah. And speaking of artifact weapons, new this week on beta is the ability to use any standard weapon illusions on those Legion bad boys. Is this intended? Is it a bug? Blizzard are very protective over those artifact appearances. Who knows? But it's nice if you like artifacts and weapon illusions, I guess, so congrats to you for now. And speaking of Mythic Plus, which we were, just not right then, new on beta last week, the Keystone Master Mount for Dragonflight Season 1. And speaking of artifact weapons, which we were before we started talking about the Keystone Mount, in many ways, I think it's fair to say that in Dragonflight, our dragon riding drakes are, to all extents and purposes, basically an artifact mount, you know? As in, we will keep them throughout the whole expansion and probably beyond, at the expense of all the other mounts we have. They are customizable in how they look, and we will spend the X-Pack picking up cool new appearances for them from certain achievements, just like artifact weapons, like the PvP appearance and a raid appearance. And so you'd quite reasonably imagine that the Keystone Master Mount might be another such epic reskin for the awesome new flying mounts that we will be exclusively using in the Dragon Isles. But psych, because here's the Keystone Master Mount and you, because it's not a Drake reskin, and actually it doesn't even fly at all, so seriously, you. And believe me when I say, that was a shit show, obviously. What the fuck is this? The Plus players can F off according to Blizz. Tell me you're completely disconnected from the game you're designing and your player base without telling me that you're completely disconnected from them. Well, this looks horrible. Ground mount is a punch in the gut. Wow! Just tell people who love M Plus to get bent, why don't you? And yeah, it does seem a bit weird to award a mount that you definitely won't be using in the Dragon Isles, not even ironically, doesn't it? But on the plus side, also, new on the beta this week, the opening theme music of the Dragonflight login screen. Now, we've got a video on our second channel reacting to and talking about this at length, but it will not surprise you to learn that it's an absolute banger. But more than that, it absolutely puts the new Dragonflight theme from the cinematic trailer front and center, which I assume means that we are going to be hearing a lot more of it throughout the expansion. And that is very exciting, because that theme is literally brilliant, and yes, it's the music that you can hear playing underneath me talking right now. And yes, that is because I have painstakingly edited together a 10-minute loop of the track, just like I do with all my favorite WoW tunes, so that I can listen to them in the bath. I mean, use them in videos, because it's for work. It's absolutely for work. I do it for my videos. In other news, Blizz clarified that Shadowlands tier set bonuses will be disabled when the Dragonflight patch launches on almost certainly October the 25th, which makes makes sense since that's when the new class changes and talent trees will go live. And because, you know, a few of those tier set bonuses do pop up in the new talent trees in some form, and you just know that would cause no end of technical shit. And anyway, personally, I am totally in favor of ripping that band-aid off right now. When a new expansion launches, I can do without not wanting to equip the shiny new expansion gear as I level because I'm desperately hanging on to the last dregs of my 4-piece, you know? I like a nice clean start for a new X-Pack, that's just me. But speaking of pre-patch, new on the beta this week was Blizzard testing the new Primal Storm events that will be arriving in the second phase of pre-patch, along with the revamped Uldaman Dungeon, and for pre-orders, the Dracthyr starting zone. And also new on beta this weekend, Blizzard disabling the Primal Storms event after 30 minutes because everything was going to shit and the servers were melting. So you'd have to say, honestly, the storms didn't really pass the test. It also means I did not get a chance to test them personally. And although I would expect them to come back up again early in the week, probably by the time this video releases, to be honest. And even if they don't, Wowhead gave them a thorough half an hour of testing, and as always, we are linking that and other articles we think you might find interesting in the description below. But basically, they are very reminiscent of the Legion Invasion events, one of the most popular pre-patches in WoW history, and see Primal Storm events appearing in different parts of the old world. Earth invasions in Northern Barrens, fire in Tirisfal Glades, wind in Ungoro Crater, water in the Badlands, and yes, I know, I agree, Blizz absolutely missing a huge opportunity there to add a heart invasion around the chamber in Silithus, but to be fair, everyone always forgets heart, don't they? And these areas are full of elemental mobs doing elemental things, and every half hour or so, it's hard to tell since it was only testable for half an hour, you know, an elemental lord spawns with a big shield around him that will be disabled once players in the area have killed 100 of the mobs, making the boss attackable and lootable. While the elemental lord is up, mobs drop primeval essence, and of course the boss drops a chunk of it as well, which can be used to buy pre-patch rewards like a toy bag which sucks critters into it. Okay, and level 252 armor sets, which, yeah, okay, they're 252. You know if that's going to be any use to you or not. But the sets themselves are a unique recolor of the upcoming Dragonflight questing sets, of which the plate version is like literally one of the best plate sets in the game, in my humble opinion. There is also a rare drop from each elemental lord, which, with their powers combined, can be used to create a new heirloom trinket, Unstable Elemental Confluence, which has a chance to proc extra damage or healing, and I love new heirloom stuff, so consider me sold. I'm sure you can understand I don't really want to give too strong an opinion on this event until I've had a chance to play it myself, but reports from those that did say it's okay, but a bit slow and buggy, and like, yeah, it was bad enough for Blizz to totally roll back the PTR servers, so I believe that. We might have to come back to this one next week if it pops up for testing again in the meantime. And speaking of things which will probably have happened by the time this video releases, or in the hours straight after this video releases, it really is getting to that time of the cycle now, isn't it, where we might be entitled to expect some cinematics of the cool animated Warbringers variety, isn't it? Don't think I haven't seen you, and Gregory, tweeting a little bit more than usual again, like you're getting excited for WoW for some reason. Now, you know me, fam, I hate to make predictions, but I will say I wouldn't be surprised if this is the week that those cinematics start rolling out in all their dragon aspect, Dracthyr origin, Nelfarian falling glory. And speaking of the new revamped Uldaman Dungeon, which I definitely did do at some point back there, it is now time for us to move on to our special report for the episode. And speaking of the future of Dragonflight, which I definitely mentioned it, the relatively settled state of things means that we can give some real old school speculative attention to the 5 new in-game lore books that have been found in Uldaman, which I was just speaking about. Now, I really want to put a Redbot spoiler up here because the revelations are so huge, but actually, this is technically only a Bluebot since all of this stuff is now out in the open for seeing in the beta. There's no data mining involved here. These books are there right now for people to find and read, and they are full of new stuff. I do an entire read-through of each book in their entirety on the second channel if you want to go and check that out. But here, I'm just going to give you the meat, and I'm going to give it to you raw. So, book 1 is entitled Observational Report. Earthen, and it is written by Watcher Millennia, a character we have never met before, and it's about a race of dwarves that we have never encountered before, who evolved independently of the dwarves we know, but who weirdly, coincidentally, share many of the same characteristics and culture, even though it sounds like these guys are like an earthen, fleshy hybrid mix. Yum. These old new dwarves are, or were, tasked with investigating Section AR-938, which is described as a huge fissure, basically a massive hole in the ground, and which these new earthen call Kaz Algar. And you know, what with that file popping up in the data a little while ago, which revealed that we are probably heading underground in some way for 10.1, it seems incredibly likely, doesn't it, that Kaz Algar might be our destination and the new earthen our host's next patch. Interestingly, the word Algar, as in Kaz Algar, was actually a pretty common name in medieval England and means elf spear. So I don't know if that might have any meaning, but the idea of a vast, underground, dwarven city centered around an anomaly that has affected and manipulated the physiology of the race of earthen dwarves around it sounds very exciting indeed. As long as there's still plenty of places to ride my new Drake though, because seriously, don't make it so we can't ride our Drakes underground in Kaz Algar, Blizz. Come on, seriously, don't do that, alright? And what is that anomaly? Could we be looking at Primal infused earthen, or Old God Void infused earthen? That might not be quite as far-fetched as it sounds. Let's move on to Book 2, My Staunchest Allies, which is a posthumous note from Watcher Tyr himself, warning that if Loken should have him killed, prescient, there are some discs hidden away in Uldaman. No, other discs, which if they are activated in Uldorus, which is a Titan facility we have never seen or been to, but which the Maiden of Vitality mentioned when she was short-circuiting back in BFA, then we could gain access to an item that Tyr originally gave to the Aspects. Sounds good, but at the end of the new Uldaman Dungeon, those discs are stolen by the final boss Chrono Lord Dios in the name of the Infinite Dragonflight, who apparently want that object to usher in the one true aspect, which sounds ominous, obviously. So yeah, it looks here, doesn't it, like we have a hint at another future location, the Titan facility of Uldorus, where we will be battling the Infinite Dragonflight, and probably this one true aspect that they're talking about. Ooh, pretty juicy so far, right? Well, internet, we are just getting started. Book 3 is written by Odin, yeah, I know, and is called Edicts of the Prime Designate, Volume 742, in which the leader of the Titan Watchers of Azeroth declares, and I quote, "All historical records documenting the advancement of the Black Empire are to be purged. Paint that age as one of chaos and misery, a pernicious blight that we keepers eradicated. With the old gods in confinement, there should be no evidence available to contradict our assertions." What did you do, Steve? We are very much leaning into the Chronicle is a history as seen through the lens of what the Titans left us here, aren't we? With the suggestion that the Black Empire might have had a bit more going on than we have been led to believe. And here's the thing, okay, because I know you, WoW community. I've seen this before with the Light back in BFA, where Blizz was like, oh hey, the Light might actually be a bit more nuanced than just angels and singing and wonderfulness, you know? And instantly the entire community was like, oh, so what you're saying is the Light is the most evil power in the WoW universe. Gotcha. Because we don't really do nuance. And likewise, I don't think this means that the Void and the old gods are suddenly the good guys. But I am, for one, certainly a lot more interested to find out what else was going on in the Black Empire alongside all the corruption and tentacles and eyeballs and stuff. We have not done with this book though, because Odin goes on to say, second, attribute all accomplishments and works of wonder to the Titans alone. Despite the relentless arguments made by some of you, this is not a fallacy. After all, can anything truly be said to exist until it has been ordered? Of course not. And like, man, yeah, we always knew Odin was a complete dick, but he's going full-on fake news dick here, and that is not a good look, Odin. Third, do not share knowledge of the first ones, Steve. Mortals could not conceive of the wonders that the Makers granted to the Titans in Zereth Ordus, thus learning of the progenitors letters would only confuse them. Steve, it is enough that the mortals know the Titans brought order to the cosmos and that they are owed deference. What did you do, Steve? Holy shit, we leave you alone for one expansion, seriously. Okay, so the Titans and the Titan Watchers knew about the first ones. It sounds like the Titans, at the very least, discovered Zereth Ordus, which we know from Firim's diary in Shadowlands is the arcane cosmos version of Zereth Mortis, because each cosmos has a Zereth, don't forget. And the Titans, at the very least, learned some shit from what they found there, which, in fairness, we totally did from Zereth Mortis too, so it seems a bit harsh to be too upset by all of this, but it does absolutely reframe the Titans' place in the structure of the WoW universe and potentially changes their motivations somewhat behind their search for new Titan world souls. Because if they knew all along that, in fact, they weren't a weird random all-alone power in the universe, but in fact had a creator themselves, I don't know, that's just a different vibe, you know? I've often thought that perhaps the Titans, since they exist in our reality and not the arcane cosmos, are kind of maybe a bit more like the old gods than we give them credit for, spreading the influence of the arcane cosmos in our universe just like the old gods do with the void. Anyway, one of the biggest takeaways from this is Odin is a complete dick. Important to point out though, the other Titan Watchers clearly didn't agree with Odin on this, and there was obviously a lot of debate and discussion about this fake news spreading, so this isn't necessarily the Titans being bad, or even the Titan Watchers being bad. It is very much specifically Odin being bad. You remember from our Who is the Final Boss of Dragonflight video that we actually picked him as our wild card for the big bad of the entire expansion. A card that, I'll be honest, is looking a whole lot less wild with every one of these books that we read. The fourth book is the Wreckage Analysis Report, written to Odin by Watcher Perethales, another new Watcher that we have never met and whose name has no English meaning that I can find, but which does sound very similar to parentheses, as in an interlude, like, you know, a 10.2 patch or something to a new place or a little side quest or something. I admit that one's a bit of a stretch, but he talks about a bunch of heretics that have holed up in a place called Avaloran, and there is no stretching here because Avalon means island paradise. Now, of course, Avaloran could be the Dragon Isles, and the heretics could be the Primalists, but I think it's probably more likely, because of the timelines here, that it is in fact a new, undiscovered place that we have not yet been to, which could make the heretics anything. It could make them a bunch of Titan Watchers that disagreed strongly with Odin's fake news campaign, like we were just discussing. And another interesting thing about the name Avaloran, Avalon, again, is where King Arthur is buried in Arthurian legend. Except he's not really buried there, he's just sleeping, surrounded by his Knights of the Round Table, waiting for when the world will need them again, at which point they will awake. Could it be that the heretics are trying to awaken some great ancient power under Avaloran? I guess we'll have to wait for 10.2 to find out, because finally, Book 5, Progress Report, Uldaman, which we learn is the Titan name for what we call Tyr's Hold, the main building in the Dragon Isles under which the Halls of Infusion dungeon lies. In this report from Tyr, we learn that the purpose of the Halls of Infusion is to cleanse water that had originally been corrupted by Yogg-Saron, and which we learn for the first time was what corrupted and ultimately created Galakrond, the carnivorous, many-eyed uber-proto-dragon who was the reason that the future dragon aspects even teamed up together in the first place to defeat. It has long been speculated that Galakrond had some kind of old god influence. I mean, you know, he grew lots of extra eyes and limbs, it's not that far of a leap, but this is the first explicit confirmation that we have had. And Galakrond, of course, the favourite to be the final boss of Dragonflight, so not insignificant that he should be mentioned here. The real juice, though, comes next. Once purification is complete, an additional benefit will be found in offering the infused water to dragonkind. By ingesting the water, or causing their eggs to absorb its effects, it should be possible to keep even the most willful dragons aligned with the Titan's philosophies. Steve, mate, what have you done now, Steve? Yeah, that's right, folks. The Watchers made mind control water to mind control the dragons and make them go along with the whole Titan thing. Now, important clarification. This letter is written after the defeat of Galakrond and the creation of the dragon aspects, which means that Ysera, Alexstrasza, and the rest of the Planeteers originally joined up and accepted the power of the Titans of their own free will. This mind control water came after. But, you know, it does certainly seem from the ruby life pools where eggs are incubated in Titan water that it's still an ongoing thing. And this is beyond fake news, right? This is proper 1984 baddie shit from, at the very least, Tyr and Odin, and quite possibly another reason why the heretics decided to break away and do their own thing on Avaloran. Who knows? We know that the primalists we fight and kill in the Halls of Infusion are specifically trying to revert the waters to their original non-mind control-y state. And basically what I'm saying is, are we the baddies? Again, this isn't all Titans are bad now, as much as Odin is seriously very, very bad, just like he always has been. And yeah, I am officially walking back my wild card prediction for him, because there is nothing wild about this choice anymore. Firebearded motherfucker here is now a prime candidate for final boss of the expansion, and frankly, nothing would make me happier than to take him down. For hell yeah. Now, there is obviously a lot of debate around the reveals in these books, which will continue throughout the rest of the expansion. And that's awesome. But interestingly, there is also debate about these books and items like them, like Firim's 9.2 diary, as storytelling tools. The idea that lots of players might miss these books in the Uldaman Dungeon. The idea that if our characters really had just read a report revealing that the dragons are all getting mind controlled, why wouldn't we just tell Alexstrasza? That definitely seems like the kind of thing we might want to tell Alexstrasza. For one, she deserves to know. For two, she might be very happy with us and offer to step on us as a reward. And that is a good point, honestly. It is a pet peeve of mine in video game RPGs when you are unable to tell a character something which you know would obviously solve an issue or settle a misunderstanding for sure. And it might happen in this case that we actually do tell Alexstrasza, to be honest, but even if it doesn't, it's not generally something that I mind as much in WoW, because I like these journals and books and letters dotted around the place. I think they can be a great way to tease future content. R.I.P. Craftenium, the Shadowlands Covenant zone that never made it. And I always see them as being a bit more stylized than stuff that we could just straight up share with other characters in game. I see them more as kind of a fourth wall breaking thing, which are there to let the player know stuff, not necessarily the characters that we're playing. Does that make sense? And I would hate to lose cool things like this just because it would spoil the story if we shared the information with Alexstrasza, you know? I'm generally happy with these being a fourth wall, non-literal thing for that reason. But you might feel differently, and if you do, I genuinely sympathize. Like I say, it is a critique I will happily apply to other more RPG-focused games. But whatever you think of it as a delivery method, there is no doubt that these books leave us with a whole lot to chew on, and a whole lot of potential future content. A new race of dwarves in an underground facility being physically altered by an anomaly, a new island full of heretics with something possibly underneath waiting to make a return. Tyr's artifact in a new undiscovered Titan facility, which is now likely full of infinite dragonflight, trying to usher in their one true aspect. Odin's fake news campaign about the truth behind the Black Empire, the First Ones, and the role of the Titans in shaping Azeroth. And of course, the chemtrail mind control water, placating and manipulating the dragons from before birth in the ruby life pools. And you know what? Someone should probably keep an eye on all the pleasure seekers enjoying the vacationing delights of the Valdrakken Springs too, you know? You might find they all have a lot of suspiciously positive things to say about the Titans, you know? Ooh, what a strange episode of the Weekly Reset that was. We were just getting ready to make it. Ah, that's a lie. We were just finishing the script when all of that Uldaman lore extravaganza happened in the community, and we knew we had to do something about it. We probably should have made an entire separate video, to be honest, but you know me, I like to put everything together in one big video to make as little money as humanly possible. So I hope you enjoyed a bit of old school Taliesin and Evitel speculation with your Weekly Reset. It was that change in schedule, which means unfortunately we couldn't get Evitel for an intro or for a sofa bit here, and as you can see, the room is in a bit of a state at the moment, and we're not really in a kind of a team playing mode as of yet. I promise it will be back to normal next week. Thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make all of our work happen. And guys, patrons, seriously, thank you. Thank you for paying for the new brick wall that I haven't finished yet, but there would be a whole lot less cool bricks and Taliesin and Evitel without you, so thank you. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. I don't care. No, I hope you liked it.